Most impressed with how well they collaborate.
They point to the ability to overcome adversity, the need to adapt to challenges, the need to have a collaborative working environment.
And you're going to hear this word a lot today because it's true, is collaboration. The collaboration that Matt and I have.
What we've done in the past couple of years together, there's conviction and there's collaboration to dig in and reflect and say why.
When you can collaborate.
I think it's the way they collaborate. We think that their collaboration will result in the right decisions. The leadership, the collaboration, the adaptability, again, the collaboration.
It's the collaborative relationship that Matt and I have.
So when you look at the whole product and the collaboration,
it's a collaborative effort.
Again, I've told you about the collaboration and nothing's changed there. So it's been a great collaboration.
I know we keep on using the word collaborative, but it's so real.
What the hell just happened? With the Bears, they started this new tradition last year where they celebrate their wins the correct way.
Waddle and Silvy, ESPN 1000, don't miss it.
I know what you mean. It's like their own Philly. Okay. Okay, I think what it is.
We shouldn't be showing this. Am I crazy?
What a great sign that is. What have I told you? 17 minutes of rain would wash away 108 years of drought.
Do you see this team growing into the team that you were in 2005?
Great practice, everybody.
You are ridiculous.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, back and better than ever. It's been a busy week here at Bragg's in the Stands, and we're going to finish it off strong with a very special guest coming up in just a little bit. Coming in at 8 p.m., my guy, Marc Silverman from ESPN 1000. He's going to join us at 8 o'clock, and we're going to be talking a lot about, what he had to say to George McCaskey. They had him on ESPN 1000. Really, knockdown, drag out interview. Silvy really holding his feet to the fire. And I thought, just to set the tone today, Jake, and I am your host, of course, Gregory Braggs Jr. and of course, my producer / co-host / graphic design extraordinaire, Jacob Ovanik, joining me here today. And I just thought our guy Silvy could set the tone. We've shared this video before, but with everything, being taken into consideration, everything we've seen from the press conferences to the interviews that we heard on the radio from ownership, I thought these words are still very relevant. So this is, of course, Marc Silverman, who we're going to have on in just a few moments.
Same old shit. The same old shit. Let's face it, Bears fans, year after year against the Packers, they're the hammer, we're the nail. Year after year, another year without the postseason, another year without a quarterback, another year without a good offense. We've got to get this to stop. So while we're talking about Nagy, while we're talking about Trubisky and Foles, while we're talking about Pace, never forget this, Bears fans. We need you, and we need you to put the heat on them. It starts at the top. Repeat after me. It starts at the top. Decade after decade with no Super Bowl, 20 plus years with the same team president, and 3 playoff game wins. 3. George, you want to win. You care. You had Virginia at the game. Changes are needed. You must restructure, please. And then we'll hire the right general manager. Then we'll draft the right quarterback. And then we'll hire the right coach. And then we'll win another Super Bowl. But seeing that guy telling everyone that he's number one again at Lambeau Field with 40-plus points on the board and the Bears looking only good in garbage time, not good enough, Bears fans. Repeat after me. It starts at the top. We need to band together. Remember, Bears fans, it starts at the top.
And there
it does start at the top.
That was before the Bears were able to recover and make it to the playoffs and give these guys, new life, as we saw in this press conference, Jake. And, it does start at the top. And that's where it's so frustrating. You talk about the quarterback or the head coach or even the GM, and it goes past that. And we're going to dive deep into that tonight. We have a lot of video from the press conferences that we saw a couple days ago. And then, of course, our guy Marc Silverman is going to be joining us in just a few moments to really try to hash through some of this stuff. So let's get right into it, Jake. And I'm going to let you react off this first video we got from George McCaskey. Was asked about meaningful progress, if he's seen any from the Chicago Bears.
George, what specifically did you see within this season that gives you indications that you're making meaningful progress toward winning a championship?
Well, we added some more talented players this year. Darnell Mooney is a good example, a lower round draft pick that Ryan and Matt found that blossomed this year. And became a key part of our offense. We need to keep doing more of that. The larger question was how well the team stuck together during adversity. Usually when you go through a losing streak like that, people start pointing fingers, people start casting blame. That just didn't happen with our team. And like I said, that's a credit to both the players and to Ryan and Matt for accomplishing that.
George, just to follow up on that, you said the same things a year ago that the after an 8-8 season, everyone stuck together and everyone was solution oriented. You wound up back in the same 8-8 state and going through the same adversity. What leads you to believe that the adversity eventually is not going to have to be dealt with?
Well, that's a good question. We need to see improvement. We're not satisfied with where we are now. But we think that both Ryan and Matt are the people best able to lead us to success.
And there you have it, George McCaskey. And you're going to see this a few times tonight. And that was one of the videos. I didn't pull every question he was asked because both, George McCaskey and Ted Phillips were talked for over 45 minutes, and same with Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace. But that one in particular, he seemed to be stumped by Dan Wiederer on the question of whether or not, he said the exact same thing last year, and why does he expect any of it to be different? Jake, I really don't understand where these guys' mindset is as far as holding these guys truly accountable for what they have done, not what they will do. What do you think?
Yeah, the whole press conference with George just kind of blew me away because I wasn't prepared for how it seems like he's just completely not qualified to be a chairman of a football team. It seems like he's somebody who just, excuse me, because of nepotism, he just happens to be in this role because the McCaskeys inherited this team and he's the son of Virginia. And now he's in line to be chairman of this football team. And then, on top of it, when you go to Ted's spitting out the same bogus responses. They just don't sound like they understand football. They understand what it means to be running a football team. It sounds like they're guys that are on a board of a business more than they are for a football team. And they're putting so much on Ryan Pace, especially Ryan Pace, to just be handling all of football operations when the people that are supposed to be holding Ryan Pace accountable know nothing about football, which I'm talking about George and Ted. It just kind of blows me away. I mean, maybe it's got to be a great opportunity for anybody that comes in as general manager of the Bears, because there's nobody, that you're reporting to that knows anything about football.
He's the top football guy. That's exactly right. And Ted Phillips, who isn't qualified to truly understand what a great football culture is, was asked about, making this not just a good culture with good people, but a winning culture. So
and
here
you just said that you feel like you guys have the exact right football culture that all teams strive for. I understand that you guys feel like you have a lot of good people in the organization helping create that culture, but I think a lot of people would respond to that and say it's not necessarily a winning culture yet. So can you just explain why you feel like you have the culture that all football teams strive for?
Because that's when you sit back and you look at what makes a successful organization besides wins and losses, it's the people that you have. It's whether or not they can put their egos down. It's whether or not they can look at situations, self-reflect, admit to their mistakes, and try to find learnings from not just their mistakes, but their successes that they've had and build off of those. Has it happened as fast as we'd like it to? No, it hasn't. That's why we're sitting here now saying we do trust Ryan and Matt, but we need to see improvement. We need to see improvement. I do believe that when you, as we've read many times over the last few weeks, there's a desire to fire everyone. When you don't win enough games, fire everyone. That is not a recipe for success, in our opinion. When you believe in the people that you have who can learn from their mistakes. If there was finger pointing, we would understand that. That is not a recipe for success. That's not a good culture. We don't have that. Many teams, when you lose 6 games in a row, will fall and they will finger point, as George pointed out, and they won't recover from that. We did. We did. Did we do well in the playoffs? No, we haven't won any playoff games in Ryan and Matt's tenure.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's tough. I had to cut it off because he rambled on for another minute there, and it just seems like whatever his title is. I know everyone wants to argue exactly what role he holds his team and what responsibilities he has to this football team, but it just seems like a guy that is so out of touch, and it's nerve-wracking. It is, just as a Bears fan that wants better, and Silvy was beating the drum about letting him slide to the side and continue to handle the business side of things. Not even, I've said the same thing. Don't even fire the guy. A lot of guys want Ted's job. just move him to the side and bring in somebody that's actually a football guy. I could actually skip ahead to that because George McCaskey was exactly that. And he seemed to not understand the question. It's actually a nice little back and forth here. I'll share with you.
George, even with this year's playoff appearance, the Bears have been in the playoffs 7 times in 28 years since the end of the Ditka era. And to a lot of fans, that reflects on you. So how much merit is there to the idea that the Bears need people more rooted in football to make these football decisions than you and Ted?
Well, Ryan and Matt are our football guys. I've heard it often that Ted meddles in football affairs, and that notion is just absurd. It just doesn't happen. He's the president and CEO. Ryan reports to Ted. But the idea that Ted or I meddle in football decisions just isn't true.
No, that's not my question. It's not about meddling in the actual football, like on the field. I think the criticism is that you are judging the coach and general manager, and I think people feel that the Bears need people more rooted in football to make that decision.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah. That's a valid criticism. My performance is evaluated by ownership and the board, and that's how that process works.
Yeah, what is that?
Just another example of him being stumped. Like, that's your answer right there. You're not a football guy is the answer. And another man that has a lot of answers is my guy from ESPN 1000 and a really good friend of mine. And I apologize, Jake. I was going to do my intro, of course, from ESPN 1000. My guy, Marc Silverman. How are we doing today, Marc? It's been a long time coming. You know, I used to do audio podcasts, and you were nice enough to join us there. But now you get to be live and in color with good old Greg and my great friend from childhood, Jake Hovanek. So how are we doing today, Marc?
Good, guys. What's going on? I didn't know that this was going to be on camera.
Oh, yeah.
Get the makeup on it into my hair.
Oh, man. Well, your hair's looking good, Sylvie, and we're happy that you're good and healthy here as we enter the 2021 year, move past 2020. We shared your rant from the Packers game earlier, and it still holds true. You know, it starts at the top. It's been a frustrating couple of days, and you were actually able to get George McCaskey on your show yesterday. I believe my days are molding together after my head spinning the last week. And it was an amazing interview for anybody watching right now. Make sure you go to the ESPN app and check out that interview. But I have to ask you, Sylvie, because at one point in the interview, you know, you asked him the notion about Ted Phillips being involved in football side of things. And you brought up the story of him being directly involved in them not trading up for LaDainian Tomlinson back when you were covering the Bears on the Bears beat. So when George McCaskey says he's not involved with the football aspect of decision making, is that a lie? I mean, that's no other way for me to put it than that.
Well, I don't know if it's a direct lie, but I mean, when you're the boss of the football guy, you're the general manager, when you're George's biggest sounding board and him and George are making a decision whether or not to fire Ryan Pace or to fire Matt Nagy, you're involved in football. When you're the guy hiring football people, you're involved in football. When you are interviewing, Trustman and Arians and you want mock press conferences, you're involved. When you're on the plane and flying around to Matt Nagy, to all the different head coaching candidates along with Ryan Pace, you're involved in football. I mean, when you're looking at things as to why it's remained constant, why have they been inconsistent? Why don't they go to the playoffs every year like some of these teams? Why haven't they won a Super Bowl in 35 years?
Right.
The constant has been Ted Phillips. He's the longest constant. He's more constant than George has been. He's been running the show as president since 1999. So I don't know how that's not involved. And anyone who's selling you it's not, just wants to kiss the Bears' ass.
And he was also involved in the decision. Wasn't it Chris Ballard that wanted to come in, but they wanted to get rid of Jay Cutler? He was in on that decision as well. Those are two instances that changed the whole complexion of your franchise for not just 1 year. That's a decade long when you're talking about a guy like LaDainian Tomlinson being on your team, so it's frustrating. Another thing that frustrated me about the press conference was, you mentioned on your show today, Matt Nagy, took so long to find out how to use Cole Kmet. Took 2 years how to find out how to use David Montgomery. How long has he taken to figure out who to put on the offensive line? Still hasn't really found an offensive identity. Do you feel like Matt Nagy got a pass at the press conference? I mean, I'm seeing Pace, Ted, and George's feet held to the fire. And I rewatched it today as we got ready for this show. And I felt like Matt Nagy really wasn't held accountable for any of these things. And we're just going to continue to say that it's the quarterback that's just going to solve all our problems. Am I not reading what I saw there right?
I get what you're saying, and I get the frustration. I feel like the reason why Matt Nagy didn't get a lot of criticism is because we've been hearing that every day. I mean, it's a different day, right, Greg? I mean, Matt Nagy speaks after games. Matt Nagy speaks on Monday, reflecting on the game. Matt Nagy speaks Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And aren't we used to it by now? Aren't we used to Matt's really good with apologies? But like I've said, the problem is he's apologizing too much. It's constant apologizing. It's sorry we didn't stick with the run game. It's sorry we didn't coach Mitch to his strengths. Sorry that we continue to play coward. Sorry this, sorry that. And I'm sort of used to it. What I got Wednesday was, to me, is that it was George and it was Ted speaking. So, and then Pace even, Pace hides in his GM bunker forever. And other than doing the BBM stuff, we never hear from him. So I just think our focus was more on those other three, and especially just the fact of where they are at the top, and that they flaunted, hey, here's Ted. You don't like him? Too bad. Here he is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, and I'm going to let Jake fire away here right after I slide this question in here, because this is something I was really fired up about before they made the decision, and I called into your station here earlier this week, and they hit it home a lot in the presser. Are these guys confusing a good culture for one that is a truly striving to be great culture? Because these guys are fighting in games. They are club dubbing after 6-game losing streaks. You got Matt Nagy, constantly not taking accountability. He'll say, before he takes accountability for himself, he's going to say Anthony Miller was the reason that got in that fight. Mitch Trubisky is the reason that the offense doesn't work. I never hear him step up in front of that stuff, as Chubbs is pointing out in the chat as well. Is this truly a good culture, or is it just feel like it on its face? Because we saw this, kind of same thing with the Cubs, where it was like all good. They're dancing, having fun. They actually were lucky enough to win a championship. And then all of that structure crumbled. And I kind of see a lot of similarities between Matt Nagy and Joe Madden. What do you think there?
Whoa. I think it's silly to compare the Bears culture to what the Cubs had when they go to 3. Like if the Bears went to NFC championship game, Super Bowl and won.
Sure.
Championship game, we would be doing cartwheels. I mean, that's what it's all about. So I wouldn't compare the Cubs and the Bears. I mean, what I see with the Bears isn't anything bad. I mean, what happened though in the Saints game with, again, Anthony Miller doing what he did, that's bad. But overall, do I think the Bears have a bad culture? No. And now I'm acting like a Bears person.
But how do you feel about this? The club dub stuff bugs me. It was something that ran dry in 2018. We saw those kind of gimmicks run dry with the Cubs, and that's, I guess, where the comparison for me meets, not necessarily their win-loss resume. And then you also consider all the drama we've seen on Twitter with these guys. Allen Robinson, these guys are like searching for their name on Twitter. I mean, I get it. We're in a pandemic. There ain't much else to do, but it just feels like it's wasted energy for guys that I want to wish that all they want to do is win a championship. I always go on everything on the Jordan metric. You got the Wheaties boxes behind you. You followed every footstep of Michael Jeffrey Jordan, just as I did for Devin Hester as a Bear. And Michael Jeffrey Jordan would never club dub after a 6-game losing streak. He would never go on Twitter and start spouting off with fans. And I just want my players to have the Jordan mentality. Am I asking too much?
No, I get it. I get what you're saying. My biggest issue is, like, I just like to keep my focus on the lack of being in Club Dub. That's my biggest issue, is they're only in Club Dub 8 times, and they were 6 straight weeks without being in Club Dub. And even a few of the times when they were in Club Dub, they were ugly wins where we're like, dude, you were supposed to bring an offense here. You know, Club Dub is cute and it's fun and all that, but I want to be in Club Dub after scoring 31 and 38 and running with the Packers and beating Aaron Rodgers in a shootout. I don't have as much problem as you do. I see your point, but on my list, Greg, of different things that I'm pissed at the Bears on, being in Club Dub after a 6-game losing streak isn't the top of the list.
Sure.
That's fair. What do you one of the things that nobody seemed, maybe I missed it. Unfortunately I didn't get to hear your show the other day with George, but did anybody ask George, what does success look like for the Bears next year? Because the impression that I get from George is he's looking at this playoff appearance as something really substantial, even though they really didn't. I mean, they earned it, but they kind of backed their way in from other teams' losses. So what do you think success looks like to George for 2021? Because in a way, if the Bears are going all in on 2021, there's a high probability they're mortgaging their future based on their lack of assets, based on the cap situation. Like, what do you think success is to George?
And he would not answer. I mean, we didn't go deep with him on that. He like some of the reporters tried to ask him in the press conference. We were told 10 minutes with George. So I wanted to really highlight a few of the most important things about the structure and about the culture and about the different things. So what I heard in the press conference was just a guy who's keeping it open. He's not pinning himself down and saying, hey, you've got to win a playoff game or else you're out. But I think, Jake, what your point is about mortgaging the future, if you have guys who are desperate and guys who are here to win next year to save their jobs, are they saving their backsides more than they're saving the franchise?
Right.
And then are we just stuck in this mediocrity pattern that we've been in as Bears fans where, okay, you're 8-8, you're 9-7, but now we're without draft capital. You know, Ryan loves to trade up.
Right.
And we've seen it a lot. We saw it with Mitch. It was not only a bad pick, but he traded up for it. Anthony Miller is turning out to be not only a bad pick, he traded up for it.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with wanting to go grab it. Like, if you're right with a lot of these things and we could follow you that way. But to me, there's just not enough success. And this is the first time he's going to be drafting in the first round in 3 years.
3 years.
On a move up. And then here's my other flip side. I asked this to Waddle on the show the other day. What happens if Ryan does have the right vision this year? What if he does want to trade up for someone who is going to prove that he's right, but the franchise now doesn't let him do that because he's only tied to a year?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like,
that's, yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of things here that aren't going to be perfect, and it sucks. It sucks for us because we deserve better than what we've been getting.
Yeah, and I agree. And I said something on Twitter the other day. I said, if you're going to have Ryan here, and maybe there is something in the works because for whatever reason, he couldn't even say what his contract was, which was so bizarre. But if Ryan's going to be here, then maybe you extend the guy because you don't want him to feel like he has to do everything in 1 year like we're talking about, and then really screw things up for the future. Because if Ryan knows that he has a little bit of security, if he knows, you know, that it's not necessarily playoffs or bust next year because we believe in your vision, then maybe he could do things a little bit, get a little more creative. Maybe he makes it, you know, trades Akeem Hicks. Maybe he trades Kyle Fuller. Maybe he, you know, dumps off Khalil Mack and tries to rework a few things if he knows he has a future here. That's the thing that really bugs me because I'm afraid that it's just going to be playoffs or bust, because I don't think Ted and George really look at this thing the way, like we're talking about, like a football guy would look at them. I think they look at it like a business, and their results are very simple to them. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, right. And what are those results? Are the results that, hey, business is good, but or is winning business? You know, like what is the priority of the business? And that's the biggest thing. And you know, when you look at what they want to do in the upcoming year, a lot of people believe what you were just talking about, that maybe he does have another year added, and maybe they didn't want to tell you that because they thought it would look bad. Waddle believes he signed for 2 years. Maybe is on the same page now as Nagy. I read Brad Biggs believes that too.
Sure.
But I don't care if he signed. If you gave him an 8-year extension, it would look bad, as long as you're cool with cutting bait with him when it's time to cut bait with him. If like I don't want an excuse though that, hey, we gave him more time on the contract so he would do what's best for the organization, but now we're ready to fire him, but we can't because we committed 5 more years to him. So I don't care how much Ryan Pace makes. I don't care how long his contract is. That doesn't affect the cap. You know, all this other stuff affects the cap. As long as you make the right moves as a front office, that's all I care about.
I agree with you.
And I feel like this year, as opposed to the year they had John Fox and they were putting him in the back room while they're trying to figure out their quarterback, at least this year the GM and the head coach are going to be together collaborating to find their quarterback. But, you know, the question is, at 20, will they be able to find it? Or if you have to trade up into the top 5, the kind of assets you would have to give up just to get in the top 5 to draft a question mark, would the Bears be more willing to make this picture less aggravating for all Bears fans to see and do the unthinkable, just as they did when they traded for Jay Cutler? I see a lot of similarities in the offseason we've run into, and now you have an opportunity to bring a talent that you already know can play. Yes, you'd have to sell the farm. The defense might not be as long in the tooth as when Jay came to the Bears. This is my mission for the offseason, because I'm totally down on everything that's going on. I'm not happy with it. I would have personally blown it up. But if you're going to go this way, trade for Deshaun Watson. Let's have a party next year. That's how I want to do it. How do you see this playing out? And would you trade the farm for Deshaun Watson?
First of all, I love the graphics. I love all the pro graphics. I love it.
You like it?
And you guys,
we got all sorts of stuff.
There's Virginia. I love it.
Got plenty of Mitchell.
Here, you want to see these are the greatest hits, Silvy.
Look at
like that. My baby girl. You look at Mitch's hand getting all fresh on my wife's hand. Mitch was slick, Silvy. So what do you think? We gonna get the guy on the right and just add to this picture resume?
Well, think about the 30 for 30 that would be, you know.
Oh my goodness.
What if I told you one of the worst mistakes in sports was made good, you know, and
boom.
Watson, and I don't know what we would call it, and finally solving the 102-year itch or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it would be storybook, but are they going to trade him? What's it going to take? Would they even be interested? Like everyone keeps saying, 25 or 26 teams are going to call. Like the Bears start with the 20th overall pick. Like, remember why Oakland made the trade with the Bears for Khalil Mack and not Green Bay? What everyone said is because they all thought the Bears would be, the 2 first-round picks would be towards the top of the round. Now, the Bears got lucky and the 12-4 year happened, thanks in large part to Khalil, but it was lower. But so the point of that is teams want higher draft capital. But to answer your question, I'm in. Yeah, I mean,
there we go.
Bring up the 20th pick and future first-round picks, or the 20th and then the second-round pick. I'm used to starting the draft in the 3rd round. So this year's first, this year's second, next year's first, next year's second. You know, it's probably going to take more than that. I
thought the Texans weren't good at trading. Can't we just give them some peanuts? I mean, they're giving everybody else away. Jeez, man.
Yeah.
So, Silvy, you know, I promise I'd keep it short with you. I know you're going to be on later on with Walter, with Jarrett Payton later at 10:30, and I appreciate you carving out all this time for us. You know, you guys, are you still picking on my guy Flipper over there? I've been trying to have his back. And
did you hear about the phone call? Did you hear at the end of the show about the phone call?
No, I didn't. What happened?
Sitting here in my den, I was sitting in this chair, and it was so I was like, Wednesday, I told the story. I was on the phone the most I've ever been on the phone because I'm more of a texting guy. Afterwards, I don't like to be on the phone.
I'm the other way. Yeah, you talk 4 hours a day. You probably don't want to speak after the show.
Yeah, and the kids are running around. I have a 6 and a 4-year-old. There's just so much going on these days, and I talked to a lot of people that day just because we were off after an hour, and Notre Dame basketball was on, so I was talking to people. And Cap called me, and I think I was in the shower, and then I returned his call. Then he didn't pick up. So then I texted him and I said, hey, I'm around. If I don't pick up, I'm eating dinner. He goes, give me 5. I'll call you back. So the phone rings here. I'm sitting in my office. Pick up and go, hey. He goes, hey, let me ask you a question. He goes, do you think that today's press conference was the worst press conference that you've seen since the Dave McGinnis press conference? Would you agree with that? I go, Cap, I tweeted that out earlier today. And he goes, you did? I go, yeah, I did. He goes, I don't think you did. I go, Cap, not only did I tweet that out in those exact words, but you liked my tweet earlier today. I tweeted out verbatim that today was the worst thing I've seen press conference wise this side of Dave McGinnis. And he goes, no, that's not true. And I go, yeah, here it is, 11 a.m. He goes, let me see. Scrolling. Oh, yep. Here it is. And yep, I liked your tweet.
He doesn't even realize when he's on. He thought he was on his burner giving out the likes. He don't know.
So how could I not go after him, Braggs?
Got it.
When stories like that, true stories, real stories.
Now because another two that get after Cap, they also get after me, Silvy. How we getting these two back on my side? Because I feel like in the last year, these guys have separated from the Braggsness. Now, I'm always battling with them, but I feel like now that Mitch is gone, maybe it'll start to soften. Everything got dialed up here in the 2020 year. It's a stressful year for everybody, but how do I get, I've been calling them the bullies of Libertyville, but, I'm going to soften that stance, because I want to play nice with these guys. How are you going to help me get them on our side over here?
I think it's a Braggs issue. I think they like to tussle.
They do.
Some of the conversations that Waddle and I have, and they are the ultimate contrarians. They will not admit it, but they are. They love to go oppo. It's cool a lot of times to go away from the mainstream. They're very good at what they do.
Gotta play devil's
I
advocate.
like sparring with them. And my mom always told me if I was smart enough, I would have grew up to be a lawyer because I like to argue so much. Maybe I'll have to send them some Lou Malnati's because I know you're getting a pie coming your way on Sunday because, of course, I had to bet with my heart last Sunday for the playoff game. So I'm going to be happy to send you one along. Man, it's been a crazy year. I look forward to these days. You say you like the graphics. I don't know if we'll ever get back to the days of being able to just randomly grab someone and bear hug them. But I do miss these days, Silvy. These were the good old days, simpler times when we thought the Bears were good. Look at that. Giving you the big old bear hug. I miss those days, Silvy. You're a good friend of mine, man. And I can't wait to get back. And maybe we can get into the bleachers at Wrigley this year.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the bleachers. Those days for me are.
You don't like the bleachers? Danny Rockets in left field, little alleyway all the time. So that's where it's at.
Now I need a chair. I mean, and then to Braggs' credit I want to point this out that Braggs owed me a pizza because of the bet. But I told Braggs, I go, look, just instead of sending me a pizza, just donate $20 to the Barstool Fund for small businesses.
Which I did.
Not only did Braggs donate the $20 to the Barstool Fund, but then he followed it up with a text to me saying, hey, I still want to buy you a pie. That's the kind of guy he is.
What a guy.
Hey, I got to butter you up a little bit, man. You do so much for me. You have, been a mentor to me here in these last few years when I'm trying to have fun doing this stuff. And that's all it is for me is fun, man. And, actually Bearman did have a question for you. And I promised Don I would get it to you. He's actually really good friends with Doug Plank. And he actually called into your show. Don revealed to me that he was the one that passed the number along for Doug to call in. I guess Don facilitated this whole thing, and he wants to know if you think Doug Plank and Gary Fensick, the hitmen, should be in the front office in some capacity. You know, we talked about not getting Ted fired, just moving him to the side and having a couple football guys that represent this organization. You know, Gary Fensick is one of the most, smart businessmen that come around here, and, obviously has a lot of history with the Chicago Bears. And of course, you heard Doug Plank's passion the other day. Do you think that those kind of guys would be good ambassadors for this football team?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those are smart guys. Those are historic guys. I mean, look how successful they've been. Plank's had a long career in coaching and in broadcasting. Fensick makes a ton of money. He's super smart. I mean, there's so many of those guys out there. Like Waddle suggested Trace Armstrong, who's been a very successful player and coach's agent. Jimbo Covert, super smart. Some people have suggested Olin. There's so many guys, and I think if there was a different leader, they don't even need to change their structure. I just need, at this point, someone else sitting in that president's chair. It's just time.
Sure.
I said it with Pax. It was time.
Yep.
Pax accomplished 50 times as much as Ted Phillips, but it was still time for John Paxson. Theo admitted after 9 years, it was time. And for Ted Phillips, man, after 21 years, it is damn time.
Yeah, I thought the retirement was going to pop up. I've been hearing so much about, but not so lucky.
I wish, right? That would have been that. It would have been too easy, but they had to rub it in our face that no retirement, and here he is.
And I'm emboldening Ted.
Yeah. All right. And then it's time. And it's also time to let you jet. You want to do a station ID real fast, or you want to go? You can go if you want.
What do I say?
All you got to say is who you are, what you do, how much you love me. And this is Marc Silverman from the greatest radio show in radio, sports, whatever you want to say, my man. You know how it goes.
All right.
You're a professional. So I'll give you the countdown, and then you can give.
What do you call that? Is this still?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Bragg's in the stands.
Bragg's in the stands. I used to be Shy Fans in the stands, and then I left Bears Barroom Radio Network. I did work with them for a few years, and then, wanted to do my own thing, have my name on something. So it's Bragg's in the stands, Everybody knows me as the guy that goes to the game, so that's what this is.
All right.
So I'll give you the countdown, and then you can just fire away, my man. So here we go.
Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Hey, guys, this is Marc Silverman, Silvy from Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. I'm the guy who's taught Tom Waddle everything he knows, including how to catch the football. And, of course, you're watching and listening Bragg's in the Stands, a place that I come for knowledge, I come for entertainment, and I want to hear and talk to Jake more than I talk to Bragg's.
Love it. We love it, man. You're a great friend, Silvy, and me and my family are always in your corner. We love you very much. Silvy Strong was 2020. We're carrying it into 2021 because we're always Silvy Strong, but honestly, everything you persevered through and then getting us through a pandemic with the entertainment you provided. Can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough for staying on an extra 15 minutes. I make sure to get you the biggest pizza pie on Sunday. I promise. I love you very much, Silvy. Go enjoy the Bulls game. They're kicking ass, my man. Have some fun. Thanks again. We'll catch up with you real soon.
Say hi to your daughter and your wife, and of course your mom. Say hi.
Will do.
You guys are the best. Good talking to you guys. See ya.
Thank you, man.
Have a good one. That is Marc Silverman from ESPN 1000. Great friend of mine. Now, just first time on the show. The Bragg's in the Stands debut. He's been such a great friend to our family. There we were in studio last year before we went and saw a Broadway show. Then look at this. All the way. Look at this. When I took a picture with a potato. Look at this. This was back in the day, way back in the day. And there's the traveling Waddle jersey.
The focus on that picture is
I know it's an old picture. That's what I mean. Look at all of us with our old school sweaters on. I was going to bring up to him this picture too. When we were talking about how he covered Michael Jordan all those years. Yeah. Here's a funny picture of him behind Michael. And he was telling a great story the last time I had him on my old podcast, Shy Fans in the Stands, where he was like talking about how he would make sure he was always in the right spot for the best, to get the best sound. And it just kind of reminded me of kind of the hustle that I like to put into when I go to games and try to get the best shot and get the right angle and all that stuff. And I always appreciate Silvy Been listening to him since he started at ESPN 1000. He did you used to produce and talk on Jay Mariotti's show, and I would listen to that while I was in alternative school in high school because they kicked me out. And he's been a sense of escape for me for a long time. First time I ever had a on-air argument with Marc Silverman was when he was with Carmen DeFalco arguing about whether or not you should throw balls back in the bleachers. And ever since that moment, it's kind of been a waterfall of arguments on the air, whether it's about Cutler or Trubisky or the Bulls and D Rose, and on and on and on we go. And he's always provided such great entertainment and fun for me. And now, like I said, now that we've gotten into this Brags in the Stand stuff and what I've been doing the last few years with my podcasting work, he has always been in my corner, supporting me, shouting the shows out on the air, which means so much. And everything else, all the stuff that I do with them, all the little bits they try to involve me in on ESPN 1000, I am forever grateful for, because one day when I get older, I'll be able to look back on these things and say, hey, I had some fun for a minute and something that I truly enjoyed doing. So that's what we're doing here at Brags in the Stands, having fun, doing our thing. And, it's totally up to Jake, but we can get back into more, press conference talk. But I do want to hit up our good friend Brian Potter before we move on to the next segment. So pull up my lines. I am just feeling good.
By heart by now.
I know, but I'm just feeling good. My head's spinning after a great interview with our guy, Marc Silverman from ESPN 1000. And that interview was brought to you by FanBags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs, or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with FanBags
Cornhole.
Did that good. We did that good. How you like that? Make sure you hit on my guy FanBags. Brian Potter, a good friend of mine and sponsor to our show. We appreciate his support, and they do great work with cornhole or bean bags, whatever you want to call it. Bags. They do the best in the business, and a lot of professional work on the professional circuit that you see on ESPN all the time. So make sure you check out his stuff and use that promo code, as we said. So
did you see Chubbs' question? Chubbs is upset no one asked his question. I didn't see what it was.
I tried to ask his question,
What was
the
question?
and then I guess I didn't ask it the right way, and they were making fun of me in the chat, and I'm getting flustered because I got my questions in, and I told Silvy we would only have him on for 15. He ends up being on for 30, which happens almost every time I have him on, because I have so much I want to talk to him about, especially on our first.
Talk a lot, and he's trying to get his words in.
Listen here, I tried. That was as short as I could possibly see. I mean, I'm sorry. I tried. Chubbs, my head spinning between the pictures, the videos, the comments, the cameras. We're doing so much over here. We're having fun. I tried to ask it in your way.
What was the question? Maybe we can talk about it.
Something along the lines of, is Nagy a good guy or a perceived good guy because of the way he throws, guys under the bus in certain ways, not taking accountability for the Anthony Miller fight, and just as a coach, just completely putting it on him and then going in private and talking to Anthony Miller, as opposed to saying, well, I told him on Tuesday that he shouldn't do that. Well, you obviously didn't set a good enough precedent because he did it anyway. And that's not taking accountability as a head coach. What he did with Trubisky throughout the year, talking about the first time he yanked him, saying, well, I want touchdowns and not field goals, and then proceeding to play worse offense and then having to give up his play call sheet before the offense actually fixed. And then at the end of the Saints game, he's claiming to having found an identity, which is ironic because he kind of walked into that identity, as some guys in the presser pointed out, by finding offensive linemen that he wasn't starting to begin with, playing the quarterback that should have been in, whether you want to argue about the lesser of two evils, fine, but it was no question Trubisky should have been in there. And who knows how it would have been if he'd have just adjusted his offense at the beginning of the year and played Trubisky throughout the year. Maybe they are playing with some more fluidity to end the year. Who knows? All that stuff is in the past now. Doesn't matter anymore. But certainly things that Matt Nagy should take account for himself. If he feels a certain way about the quarterback and everything else, to me, you don't verbalize that. You can say that in your back room, but when you step up to that podium, this is your team. The buck stops with you, period. And that's how I feel about it. That's why I kind of feel like Matt Nagy got a bit of a pass in this press conference, which was something I tried to ask. So I apologize, Chubbs. I know you're always busting my balls. I'm trying my best over here for you, my man. I want to ask the best questions possible. You know, everyone gave me a hard time when we had Little on. They're like, you gotta be harder. But you know, this is what we do over here.
Dude,
all right, Oscar Vado, fine.
So right.
Jake has just as much of control to mute my mic. Watch, I can even mute it. Watch.
I don't want to mute your mic. I don't want to be like that. That is actually, you know what? That could be handy.
Hey, you know, I'm telling you what.
I did it to you one time, just joking around.
Anytime you want to joke around and mute me, more than happy to. I wanted to share this along. This is how we started our show, and this is courtesy. Just put it out there. Will Whiskey Ranger from Windy City Gridiron made this and released it to the depths of Bears Twitter, and now we're using it to voice our displeasure.
That's going to be around for a long time. That's very well done.
So what do you say,
Kudos.
Jake? Do you want to get into a little more press conference stuff? I know it's nauseating, but you know we have people that you know still probably want to comb through this, and you really haven't gotten an opportunity to really voice your displeasure with this. I did as I came on the breaking news show where we had a few fans of the show come on and voice their displeasure. But how about I play a couple things and we can get through, because all the ones I pulled are some things where we can really, you know, pick these apart. So here is a question. Yeah, let's go. Here's a question for George McCaskey regarding the quarterback play.
I'm curious, what questions did you ask Ryan and Matt specifically about the quarterback position, and what did they offer you that provided you with confidence in regards to that position?
Well, we did discuss the quarterback position at length. I'm not going to go into the specifics because their end of season evaluation of the roster hasn't been completed. But it's pretty clear we need better production from the quarterback position in order to be successful.
Are you confident they can deliver that for you in 21?
Yes, we are.
God, he just, you know, George strikes me as someone who just doesn't know what the hell he's looking at. All he understands is a team winning? Yes or no? Is a quarterback, you know, a good player? Yes or no? But he's so damn black and white here. It's just, it's upsetting to listen to. And I do think making the playoffs actually meant a lot to him, where it probably shouldn't have in the evaluation process. Especially, I thought, you know, them making the playoffs actually was probably more detrimental to the evaluation process, because then you had back-to-back quality opponents and your team laid an egg against them. And now you could actually, you know, analyze that in a more constructive way by seeing them against two quality opponents. And instead they kept talking about the 6-game, you know, coming out of the 6-game losing streak against three of the worst defenses in the league and winning some games as a major positive, that most teams don't do that. Well, most teams don't lose 6 games straight.
Right. And they put themselves in that position.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about winning 3 straight, if you want to go back a little further, you can just say they lost 4 of 7. If you really, I mean, you could phrase this any way you want,
right?
But I feel like
8 of their last 11, right?
If these guys are, the way that they strike me is they're just truly businessmen. And if they're truly businessmen, then the question that was asked about how much does this have to do with COVID and financials and things like that, and he said nothing. Maybe that's bullshit, because they did create a new, you know, facility. They did not have, you know, some lost revenue. I'm sure they make, you know, way more money through television than they do from people in the stands. But maybe they were just cheap asses and they just said, let's just roll this instead of having a guy.
I think he would do it if he felt like he had to. He's done it. He's fired guys with
but he doesn't know what he's
on their
looking
contract in the past. And that's what I think it is for me, what I think one of the biggest factors is that many people aren't really talking about all that much, but you know, George is human and he's the son to Virginia McCaskey. And I believe that a lot of his decisions here, especially this offseason, have to do with how much longer Virginia McCaskey has to see the Bears play. Because to me, him blowing it up like everyone wanted, and he referenced during his opening remarks during the press conference that a fan had emailed him and said, this is embarrassing, fire someone. And that obviously resonated with him, and that was after the Lions loss. And I bet you he probably was about to. But then when he starts to think about the road it will take to get back to trying to be in the playoffs, compete for a division, win a Super Bowl, even though the Bears are not, even though their record or how they fight each year the last couple of years, they have been in the playoff hunt. Most Bears fans would tell you they have no chance of winning a Super Bowl until they truly blow it up. And I think that's where George doesn't see the forest through the trees, because he's trying to hold on to something because he doesn't want to start from scratch. Because in my opinion, he doesn't want he wants Virginia's life to end on a good note. And nothing would, how old is she now? About to turn 100,
She's 98 or
so
or
now,
something.
yeah, blowing it up, that takes 3 years. Matt Nagy and a quick fix, I think that's there. And then the other part about it is,
if I could try for a second, the problem with that also is that the Bears are in such a bad position to just double down on this team and win now financially, against the cap. I don't even see how that works. So if you're telling Ryan, hey, go win right now, let's just say that they trade for Deshaun Watson, okay? They have to move guys to even pay for Deshaun Watson, because there was somebody, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Jonathan Wood, put out an article, and it shows just the absolute dire straits they're in financially. They have to move guys. So if you acquire a talent like that, you have to move guys. If you're going to pay Allen Robinson on a franchise tag for $16 million, you have to move money for that too. So the defense, in my opinion, needs to look a lot different next year if you're going to be doing something on the right track. But you almost can't just run these guys back next year.
No, I think there's a good chance that a guy like Akeem Hicks could possibly get cut. I'm not really good when it comes to the payroll stuff, but I do believe you're going to see some surprise cuts this year because they have a full draft slate to work with. And then especially if you consider that they may bring a veteran quarterback in as opposed to drafting one in the first round to save their jobs. They may not do that. They may draft one in the later rounds that's a true project and then have a veteran ready to go. I'd rather have that than Nick Foles and a rookie. That scares me. Unless you're telling me this rookie is the next coming, the next Russell Wilson, the next whatever name you want to say that had a good rookie year, that's crucial they have a good rookie year, because these guys are still playing for their jobs, even as you pointed out how much sense that makes. If we're back in this spot next year and they're 8-8, I guarantee no matter who they drafted, these guys are getting fired. So
and that's why it would have been great to hear George explain what is success to him, because if success to him is starting to formulate this roster in a positive manner, not necessarily winning the Super Bowl next year, which sounds like something he would say, then that's a totally different equation. Because if you're just saying, hey, these guys need to win or they're out, that puts a crazy amount of pressure on them, and it's going to be really bad for the Bears 22, 23, 24 potentially, based on what they think they need to do to save their own asses.
Gotta hope they get lucky. And here's something that really bugged me, and let's hear if you catch what bugged me the most about these comments.
I'm curious about your process as the top manager in the organization. I know you've talked about meetings with Ted and Ryan and Pace, and you've said we in all of this conversation. As the final word, as the guy in charge, do you have regular conversation with fellow owners / family members? Do you have advisors, or are you the final word on the performances of Ted and Ryan and Matt? I mean, I know you're the final word, but do you arrive at that on your own, or are you getting other input?
No, I confer with other owners around the league whose opinions I trust, and I confer with members of our family and members of the board of the directors before making a decision like this.
So you didn't
and that's the point. Is just as he said in the thing where Mark Potash held his feet to the fire about not being a football guy. He doesn't understand this structure is flawed. He's got the board of directors checking him. If you go search who the board of directors are, I believe Berlissimo shared it the other day. It's a bunch of non-football people that are now advising whether or not is George doing a good job. On top of that, George is looking at the GM. He's not a football guy. This is where the restructure needs to happen. Your opinion is not valid if you're not a true football guy and you know what you're looking at. As you said, you're just the son of or grandson of George Halas, and now he's admitting that he confers with other owners. Now, I get you're in the club, so you're probably good friends with these people, but let's not forget these are your competition. So, I don't know how good of an idea it is to be asking people that don't have anything invested in what you're trying to get accomplished here in Chicago and asking the competition for help. I mean, God bless them if they're good friends, but I mean, I would think that, most people would be, competitive in this industry.
But that just proves how much he doesn't know. And that's what's very upsetting. I mean, if I grew up in the Bears organization, just for instance, just by proxy of being around it and learning things, you would think that you would pick up on things and have some intuition about things, but he's very much, I don't know anything about football. Ryan's the guy that knows this stuff. We trust him and all that. And I'm asking other owners what they think. It's crazy because it just shows that it's just nepotism. It's just, I'm born into this family. Now I'm running the business, and it's just my birthright more than it is I'm here because I know what the hell I'm doing. And that's really unfortunate. And like Alex just said in the chat, I never, ever, ever in my life thought the Bears need to sell the team. I don't know if that's ignorance, but I just never came to that point. But that press conference was so eye-opening, was so bad that if you don't literally think that you need to restructure, then you should sell the team. Because if you're just looking at your financials and you're looking at your profits and you're hoping that the couple guys that you hire are going to do the right things, this is why you've made the playoffs or have a winning record. How many? 9 years out of the last 25, 28. Yep. That's how you get that. That's how you get that. And it's unreal. It was so upsetting to watch that. And,
let me upset you a little more.
You mentioned taking responsibility for the missteps. How do you decide where to draw the line in terms of whether or not there have been too many missteps along the way, and to the point where that responsibility does not, get overvalued?
Well, you know what? That's a decision that there's lots of different layers to any decision to keep a person, not keep a person. So we'll look at all the different layers and peel them all back. And as I think George mentioned, we're gonna know whether we're heading in the right direction or not. And that's how we feel about it. This is a people business. And when we step back and we've taken a look at what are the qualities of a successful manager, general manager, and a head coach, we feel that Ryan and Matt check off lots of those boxes. Have we gotten the quarterback situation completely right? No. Have we won enough games? No. Everything else is there. And so whenever you make a decision, in my opinion, there's lots of ripple effects throughout other parts of the building too, and other people's careers. And we have a solid football foundation. We have a solid football culture. We truly believe that because we've delved into all the different issues that make up a solid football culture, and we feel confident that will lead us and lead Matt and Ryan to make the right decisions and correct some of the mistakes in the past.
Yeah, and that's bullshit because that is what George is doing with Ted. Okay, it's a people business, and that's why Ted has his job, because Ted ain't there to do anything other than run operations the way he's doing it, but he knows dick about football. So
he's a good guy to have a steak dinner with.
It's bullshit, and it's so frustrating.
And what's frustrating to me listening to him there is saying we've got we've won the games. We have the foundation. We have all this stuff. Did we get the quarterback right? No. Did we win enough games? No. But everything else we have. Slow down. And then he doubles down on that and says, we have the culture. I could pick both of those things apart and sound like the worst Bears fan in the world. And most people will take it as me trying to defend Mitch to my dying breath, but it's the truth. You're saying that you've got everything right but the quarterback. Then you have not been watching the last 2 years. And that is what I've been trying to tell people and bust on Waddle and Silvy for the last 2 years. And I've been getting called a truther for it. This is more than just the quarterback. And if you're not going to hold your head coach accountable for not identifying the offensive line 2 years in a row, not knowing how to run the ball with David Montgomery 2 years in a row, not ever finding an offensive identity. Basically, you could even argue 2018 they had somewhat of an identity, but they haven't since. It's just a constant. And then you want to talk about culture. We've been through it. I don't think that it's a good culture to club dub after you're on a 6-game losing streak. You should hold yourself to a higher standard as coaches and teammates on that team, wanting more than to be dancing after a 6-game losing streak.
Were they actually doing that?
They didn't put the media stuff out, propaganda, that stuff this year, because they learned their lesson in 2019. Because 2018 they'd put out the club dub after every win, and Bears fans couldn't get enough of it, including me. I loved it. But the bit ran dry because in 2019 they weren't good, and then they kept trying to do it. And I could understand at the beginning of the year, but then at the end, when the wheels had fallen off, they were still doing it after a losing streak and then publicizing it on social media, because sometimes as great a job as the Bears social media does with different highlights and graphics and things of that nature, sometimes they're timing and tone deaf about certain things, and then they get lit up in the comments, and you see them like today thanking the fans for their support. It's brutal. I mean, fans are going at them right now. You have to know it's about timing. So this year they learned their lesson not to show club dub, but don't make any mistake about it, Jake. They were doing it after they won, the week after their 6-game losing streak. And hey, I get it. Every game you should be proud of yourself that you made it through alive. I mean, they're putting their lives on the line, all that stuff. But I just hold my bar for an athlete. And are you on that Michael Jordan mentality level? I mean, that's that's what I grew up watching, was a guy death starved to win every game.
You remember, and that has everything to do. We're talking about culture, right? You remember that story that Jordan told when he first got on the team, and he went into the hotel room, and there was guys drinking and doing drugs and playing cards and bringing in women, and he was like, "What the hell is this?"
Right.
That is a direct result of the culture of the Bulls at that period in time.
And also, you talk about everybody likes each other in this house. Michael Jordan was fighting with all sorts. You watch that Last Dance documentary. He's fighting with the owner. He's fighting players in practice. He even got emotional when he talked about, if you don't like how I play, then too bad. This is how I win. And like I said, it's a tough bar to expect every player to be at, but at the same time, you got to at least be trying for that bar. And for me, that kind of stuff speaks to a bad culture. You heard Mitchell Trubisky say it at the end of his Saints press conference, saying we as a franchise need to learn what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. Some people took that as the fighting comment and accepting fighting and things of that nature. But I also think there was a little bit of the club dub and a little bit of the, holding other players other than Mitch accountable for poor play.
Yeah.
And there was that stuff in there. So
the other thing too, is that talent also would transcend that culture to a degree as well. If you had Pat Mahomes on this team right now, and that was the culture that the Bears had, he'd still be slinging the rock. So I agree in the culture regard, but it's also a lack of talent that the Bears haven't brought in, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that we're bearing the brunt of. And I don't think it's fair that Nagy keeps getting this pass that, he hasn't gotten his quarterback yet. He hasn't got, if Sean McVay was on this team, he would have got a lot more out of this offense. If it was Sean Payton, if it was Kyle Shanahan, if it was any of these bright guys, they would have gotten more out of this offense. So I don't want to hear that bullshit.
Right.
I'm so sick of it.
Yeah,
And
Sean Payton had Taysom Hill. Look at how he adjusted. You think, how would Taysom Hill have fared in our offense? So you're actually picking up right where the next video goes to when we talk about culture. And Adam Hogue from The Athletic had asked, George McCaskey about culture, or Ted Phillips, I believe, and he had the same question for Ryan Pace.
Hey, Ryan, I'm going to ask you a similar question I asked Ted earlier, but because he was talking about the culture and how other football is the culture that other teams want. I think we're all well aware of how you guys like and feel about the people that are in this organization, but how do you take it from that to a winning football culture?
For sure. I think, when we talk about culture, and I do think there's a lot of teams in this league, guys, that would not come out of it, the 6-game stretch we went through. And I do think that speaks to, we say culture, but I think it speaks to the coaches, and I think it speaks to the young talent on our team. Like, there's a lot of young players that stepped up down that stretch to get us into the playoffs. That's true. And I know one of the questions asked earlier was, are we closer to a 12-4 team or an 8-8 team? There are a lot of things that we went through this year that all teams are going through in an unprecedented year. And I think we learn as we go through those moments and we become stronger. I think there's a development of a lot of young key players on our team that have gotten better, that are foundational pieces for us as we go forward. Do we hit our goals? No, Adam. Like, there was inconsistency on offense. We know that, and some second half struggles on defense, and inconsistency at a quarterback position that's critical to our success. But I think it's on us now to take this time, take a deep breath, take out emotion, identify what the problems are, and then use this offseason to fix it. And that's on me. Like, I get it. Like, it's on me to supply better players to our coaching staff to win games. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
So there it is. That's just stuff we're talking about right now. And there it was again, Ryan Pace now saying it, and they all took a turn saying it. Pace highlighting inconsistencies at the quarterback position. No kidding. Why were there inconsistencies at the quarterback position? Are you 100% certain that it's all because Mitchell Trubisky is a mental midget? Because that's what they're selling in this press conference, that, hey, we didn't get the quarterback right, and we're ready to do that this time. Even though we had our crack at Nick Foles, which we're going to get to next, but I'm just hearing this quarterback excuse. Ryan Pace makes no mention of his head coach not identifying the tight end until the end of the year, not identifying, what quarterback to use, not identifying his offensive identity that he then made claim to after the Saints loss in the playoffs. I don't hear a head coach being held accountable. I hear a quarterback being held accountable. I've seen a quarterback be held accountable for 2 years in the city, and I think I've seen a head coach and a GM to an extent getting a pass. I think the GM
definitely got a pass. I mean,
Ryan got his feet held to the fire in this press conference, but
a little bit. But he got, every time he was asked something, he just deflected from it. I watched the interview with Chris Ballard, and I commented earlier in the week, and he was like, "Look, if I get I know you guys want me to draft a quarterback, and it'll get you guys off my ass. If I draft somebody, maybe it works out. If it doesn't, I'm out of here." Well, that's the accountability. The Bears just watched. You have the potential of 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks out of 3 in the draft that we took Mitch, and you couldn't identify 2 of the players, and you chose the worst one. You chose the one that didn't have any of the experience of the other ones. One of them won a national championship. Pat Mahomes is a freak athlete and had crazy numbers, and they chose the guy that was just the media consensus number 1 was Mitch. And that is concerning. And they asked Ryan, what do you identify with the choice that you did of choosing Mitch compared to what you would do now? We can play
that right now.
He barely talked about it,
because we have both his question about Foles and why and how he missed on Mahomes and Watson, and we'll play that first right here.
With all due respect, Ryan, what specifically was the misevaluation that led you to choose Trubisky over Mahomes and Watson? And what specifically have you learned from that mistake that will help you get it right this time?
Yeah, I think, again, I get the question, Mark, and, we're focused now. I think what you just said is, like, what did you learn as we go forward, and making sure in any acquisition we make that we're doing it the right way. I think, and I don't think I would say this, the chapter, we still got a lot of decisions to make. I mean, the season just ended 3 days ago. So we have a lot of things we got to work through with a lot of decisions on our roster, including quarterbacks. So some of those things still got to unfold. But the key word to me is taking this on together with our scouts, and not just with Matt, with the coaches that he has around him. I really feel strong, especially with the quarterback position, when you talk about Matt and Ragone and Flip and Laser, and us just taking on a lot of these tasks together. That's what gives me confidence.
That's not what I want to hear my GM say. I don't want to hear him say, well, now that I have Matt and Flip and Laser, well, now we can evaluate.
Right, he's leaning on, well, last time I didn't have any of these guys. That's why I got it wrong.
You're the general manager. And that's the thing that
and he's saying he hasn't been evaluating these guys. Was there any point where he was like, well, I've already, evaluated 6 guys this season during college? We got guys on Bears Twitter that sound like they're ahead of the evaluation, that they're just getting started now.
He completely non-answered the question. I would respect him as much as I don't like Ryan Pace, and I know other people do, and I'm looking at his body of work, and I do not like what he's done, and I'm not a fan of his. If he would have came out and said, look, I screwed up. I misevaluated Mitch, and I know I missed out on these guys. I've identified a few key issues like Mark was asking him to do. What have you identified? Just lay it out on the line and say, yes, I screwed up. I need to be better. I need to evaluate these guys. I need to look at what we're doing and change and blah, 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 blah. He did none of that. And he just completely deflected it. He's just, the guy just screams coward to me. And he seems like he's in that relationship now with George and with Ted, where it is a relationships thing. And we're all buddies.
Yep,
so I don't
we
have
all
to
eat steak dinners together.
Yeah, I don't have to be quite as accountable now because I'm in with the family. I'm so close with them, and we're just going to sidestep things, and we're going to play our little.
Why does he get so much credit for upgrading the Hallis Hall facilities? Like, I could have told you, give me the GM job, and I'll go up to George and be like, hey, George, we need to spend a lot of money. No shit.
Well,
hey, hire me
thing.
as GM, and I'll go, hey, George, if we build a state-of-the-art brand new facility, stadium right there on the lake, we'd be the biggest home run attraction in the city of Chicago. You'd be getting Super Bowls, the NCAA championships. You'd have concerts and every event you could think of in your stadium. And then when he builds it, I could act like I'm a genius for suggesting it. No kidding. They needed upgraded facilities. I don't know why Pace gets so much credit for that.
I don't think he feels the need to be overly accountable because he knows he's accountable. Or he's literally the football guy to 2 guys that don't know anything about football.
That's what Coach Dre's saying here in the chat. As you say, this is our football guy, and he's saying that the reason they're not going to get it wrong this time is because of all the other people that are in the house, as you just pointed out. Now, the other half of this quarterback discussion is the free agent evaluation. And last year, they evaluated that Nick Foles gave us the best opportunity to have a chance for a successful season as a backup plan to Mitch Trubisky. They gave up a 4th-round pick for Nick Foles and then paid him $20+ million to be a failed backup. And Ryan Pace was asked about that failure of a decision. Here it is.
The words process and collaboration. How does that change when evaluating the veteran quarterbacks, specifically with Nick Foles? Because the process and the collaboration resulted in Nick Foles. With hindsight and what you learned through this year, what will change? What will you do differently when it comes to looking at veteran quarterbacks?
You want to start first, Ryan, or you want me to go?
Yeah, I think our process, Adam, is always the same and is always getting refined as we go forward. And I think sometimes it can be a little bit different in what avenue you're acquiring the player. With Foles specifically, as we look at that, and I reflect on him and that move, and he's under contract for us. And, I respect the way, he handled a lot of adversity this year, not just for himself, for that quarterback room he was a leader in the room, even as a starter or as a backup. And, I think you go back to when he was playing Adam, and there's some things that, in fairness to him, the offensive line was a little unsettled, and the run game wasn't quite maybe where we wanted it to be. And then unfortunately he got injured. So I think there's still some evaluation left out there on him. But again, just coming off 3 days, off a playoff loss, a lot of those things are things we got to discuss. But
unbelievable. And for him to gas up Nick Foles halfway through that and say, that's what scares me. Do not go into next year with Nick Foles. Don't be telling me, oh, well, we didn't get a fair evaluation with him because we didn't have the offensive line or run game in place. When Mitch Trubisky never got 1 ounce, 1 shred of that excuse when he got benched in the 3rd game of the season. And then you want to, then you bring Mitch back and they figure it all out with Bill Lazor and then go, well, if Nick had all that, then he would have been good. Good luck to you if that's what you're going to go into next season with. And I want the Deshaun Watson evaluation because you don't have to think about it. You can just get him in here and he can be good because it's clear that Matt Nagy needs a Ferrari to run his offense because if he's got anything below that, he doesn't know how to race.
I'll bet you any money if Deshaun Watson was on this team, they'd probably still be an 8-8 squad.
Hey, you know what? And I've seen this happen when we got Jay Cutler and all my hopes and dreams. We finally got the gunslinger Pro Bowl quarterback, and I threw a party and I went to the Bears Expo that year and made everyone at the Cadillac Club in Soldier Field give them a standing ovation. Jerry Angelo and their front office all standing up on the podium. I had the whole crowd giving them a standing ovation for their courage for finally doing what Bears fans have been begging for. And I will ask for the exact same thing this time. I don't really care. I understand that it may set us back. I understand it may not work, just as it did with Jay Cutler. But at this point, now that they're sticking with these 2 guys, there is no other alternative other than hoping that they lose next year, which as a fan that enjoys rooting for this team each year, I don't have much interest in doing. So I'm not a guy that wants to point out problems. I'm a guy that wants to find solutions. So either find Deshaun Watson on this team or find that rookie quarterback that's going to be the next coming of Russell Wilson his rookie year. Other than that, this team has no chance, and they're going to be in the exact same spot they were at the end of next year, firing everybody.
That's why I asked Silvy about what does success look like for George, because let's just say they fired Matt and they fired Pace and they brought in a new GM, and the GM said, look, we need to rebuild the squad. Based on the moves that Pace makes, maybe that's okay. If he's like, I know that I don't have to win the Super Bowl next year. I need to offload some of these contracts. I need to just kind of see what happens. And, if we have a 3-13 season, so be it. That's why it's interesting to know what the success looked like, because if this was a new GM and a new head coach, we would accept that. We would accept that they're offloading
That's
contracts.
Why they should have blown it up.
We would accept. Right. Exactly. But
the same thing as what happened with John Fox. It's the
right.
exact
But if you
same
have Ryan Pace right now and you told him he can do that, then that's okay too. But we have to see what they do. If they start loading up to compete this year, then you're going to understand, okay, well, then you better damn well win. If you see them offloading contracts and trading guys and getting cap space back, and they don't extend A-Rob or they don't franchise tag him, then you're going to accept that this team's basically in a rebuild, and that's a totally different story. That's why it would be nice to know what the hell his measure of success is for next year, but we don't know that. We don't even know if he has another year in his contract, which is the stupidest thing in the world.
No, it really is. And we're going to get to that because that was my favorite part of the press conference. So we can get into that because let me make sure I didn't have anything else because here was George asked about the extensions. I want to set it up with that, and then we'll move to the funniest point and when Ryan Pace was asked about it. So here was George to set it up so you as the fan can understand the structure system on their extensions.
Your support of Pace and Nagy is obvious. And I know you said that they don't have contract extensions, but are you considering, based on your support of them, are you considering contract extensions for either or both of Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy at this point?
That's an ongoing process. That'll be mostly in Ted's hands, but we haven't really gotten to that yet.
JJ? Yeah, I can add that the contracts haven't been part of our discussions. It's not a concern with anyone. And when we show improvements, contracts will take care of themselves.
And look at that. That's up to Ted.
I know, not
That's up to
making
Ted.
any football decisions, and he looks like
Guy
the,
that doesn't make
the
football
leader of the
decisions is gonna
mafia.
extend
It's
some
like
guys.
looking at his fingers while he's talking about contract. When we see some improvement, that's when you'll see the extensions. Okay, well, that's a really flawed way of going into next year. If you're telling us, which you just did, that we're not giving them an extension until we see improvement, and then not selling the farm for any kind of veteran quarterback, and then expecting that improvement with Nick Foles and a rookie quarterback.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. The measure of success to Ted Phillips and the measure of success to a qualified president of football operations are completely two different things. And for Ted and for George to be hanging their hat on this playoff appearance proves that point right there. That was a measure to them of success to the point where they value that a lot. But I think a more seasoned, a more veteran, a more savvy, intellectual, president of football operations or whoever it is would see that in a very different way. And the fact that it's up to Ted if there's extensions, well, then Ted is evaluating football. Yes. Ted is evaluating a football coach and the general manager.
So don't listen to the interview with Marc Silverman on ESPN 1000 where he holds George's feet to the fire. He goes, well, don't you understand that the structure, the Cubs did the same thing where they refocused their structure and they got the right people in place. And George countered with him and was like, well, the Cubs just got the right people in place, and that's what Ryan Pace is. Well, Ryan Pace has been here 6 years. There has to be someone above Ryan Pace that's a football guy too. You can't let the buck stop at Ryan Pace. You have to have somebody that's a football guy that's holding Ryan Pace accountable, and he just doesn't understand it. Maybe he will after this upcoming year failure. I don't know. But here was the best part of the whole dang day, and this is when Hub Arkish, started to peel into exactly what Ryan Pace's contract is currently.
Morning, guys. This is for both of you. For whatever reason, there's some confusion about how much time remains on your contracts. And, I don't want to get into your personal business, but it's pretty well established in this business that managers might have acted or worked differently depending on whether they're in the final year of deals, how much time they have left to go. So I wonder, and it makes it really hard for us to report accurately and fairly without understanding what might be causing some of these decisions. So I'm wondering if you'd mind sharing with us how much time you do have left on your contracts.
Hub, I respect the question, and I totally get why you're asking it, but it's no different than player contracts. And for us, honestly, the entire focus, and you got to believe me when I say this, the whole focus is on getting this team right and doing what's best for it. It's not about our contracts. It's about what's best for the team. And if you just keep it that simple, talking about contracts, to me, that's a selfish way to look at things. To me, it's what's best for our football team. And that's all that matters.
He is slick, isn't he?
I can't stand Ryan Pace.
If I was just screwing around at the job every day and getting progressively worse at laying my bricks, and he asked me, well, how much didn't I just give you a raise last year because you were doing a better job? And I was like, this isn't about how much I make. This is not, what do you mean this isn't about you? To me, it was just such a cop out, and it was funny. And then Hub, the best part of this whole thing was he doubled down on him. And to me, it was just a classic moment in this presser.
Ryan, with all,
and here it is.
Ryan, with all due respect, we do know the terms of the players' contracts. I'm just asking when they expire. I don't care what you make or anything like that.
Yeah, and to me, Hub, that's just a non-factor in anything we're doing. I understand why you're asking it, but to me, it's just all about what's best for the team, and without getting into contract durations or any specifics.
God, that's so stupid because he just tries. I really
It's so funny
I
how
like Ryan Pace so much
I'm
more
not
after
gonna answer that. He's like, no, and that's just so funny to me. He barely talks to the media, as you said. Like you use the word cowardly, and honestly, it's hard to use a word outside of that when you consider how he barely talks to the media, and then when he's standing up there getting his feet held to the fire, he dodges questions, doesn't truly answer them, and then he won't even give them a year status. It's not about me. It's just like players' contracts, and as
he doesn't get it. He doesn't
eloquently put out, we do know the players' contracts, so you're the only person we don't know about, and that's not fair. It's not. We should know how many years he's got on our franchise. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous. And so to wrap things up here, we got a couple of. Because we didn't really, to me, and that's why with Silvy's statement to start the show, where he put it back after the Packers game, and everything we've talked about with Silvy and everything we've talked about here on these clips, it starts at the top. And I do believe Matt Nagy got a huge pass in this press conference because as I went back and pulled clips from each of these, Q&As, Matt Nagy really didn't get hit hard with any questions. Everything was directed at George, Ted, and Ryan. And for the most part, Matt got to dodge quite a bit of stuff regarding culture, why guys are fighting. He's dodging that. He's dodging why the offensive identity has never been found, dodging why he couldn't get the quarterback figured out, why he brought in Nick Foles. None of this stuff was directed at Matt Nagy.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we had two final statements, one from Ryan, and then you'll finally hear from Matt Nagy. Here is Ryan Pace answering to how close the Bears are.
Ryan, with instability at quarterback, back-to-back 8-8 regular seasons, how close or far do you feel like this team is from climbing out of that NFL mediocrity where they sit right now? And how should Bears fans feel about the state of the team after what they've heard this morning?
Yeah, I think we talk about the quarterback position and how critical that is to any team's success, and we understand that, and that's why it'll be a big focus of us and a big decision for us. And you talk about 8-8 not being good enough and losing in the first round of the playoffs not good enough. So how do we bridge that gap to some of those other teams and where we aspire to be? And to me, I look at it as continuing to add young talent to our team. Again, we feel like we have a young core, but we need to add more to that. We need to provide our coaches with better weapons on both sides of the ball. Fortunately, in this draft, we're projected, we expect to have approximately 8 draft picks. We have our first round pick, our second round pick, our third round pick. So we do have ammunition in the draft, and we have some creative things that we can do this offseason as well, even with possibly a lower cap number.
Unbelievable. He's banking off of the draft he had in this last year. And I'll admit, I was down on Cole Kmet at first, and he started to blossom at the end. I'm worried about how the fact that it took Matt Nagy so long to realize that guy had talent. I'm worried about how long it took him to figure out how David Montgomery had talent. So, for the people that defend Ryan Pace, he has made some nice moves. I like Roquan Smith. I like Jalen Johnson, but I didn't like Robert Quinn edition. He didn't play very well this year. I didn't like, Nick Foles trading for a 4th round pick when you could have just drafted a 4th round quarterback and he'd be a year into his development on your team. So, it's too much inconsistency, probably not enough to truly hold your job. But luckily for him, he's got George McCaskey in his back pocket. So as I said, here is Matt Nagy's final statement, and the only thing you'll really hear from him today, because as I said, he didn't really say too much in the presser that was worth substance.
Something that our fans can be proud of. That's a promise.
Yeah, Dion, I just want to jump in real quick and second that in regards to what he just said. I think that's real. And just for all of us to realize, we wouldn't want it any other way in regards to the extreme passion that our fans and our city has. There's that's a beautiful thing. And, that's not something that we take lightly or that we just put by the wayside. Or we care about all that, and we understand that. And that's what motivates you is and for our players too. We, just like George said, in regards to the fans not being there, we live by that. We love that. And we take this challenge head on. And just like Ryan said, we're going to put our head down and we're going do everything we can to get everybody to be happy, which is by winning and doing it together, which is the only way and the only thing that we know. So that part's exciting, and we're really looking forward to it. And we appreciate all you guys, throughout this entire season. And Ryan and I are looking forward to doing that here as we move forward.
Man, that is so unencouraging. The enthusiasm that he's exuding there is very weak, and there's like he doesn't exude this confidence that makes you think, I know what to do. I'm in control here. I understand what we need to do to be better. He just assumes that things are going to be better, and I don't know, man. If we're gonna find one silver lining in this situation, George got murdered this week, and he has to. If you're thinking objectively, maybe you are thinking, okay, structurally, maybe something needs to change if these guys don't work out, because everybody was just on my ass like crazy, So maybe there is a silver lining there if inevitably, that Ryan and Matt don't work out, and maybe that happens after this year, depending on the circumstances. Maybe that will light a fire for him to change things organizationally, especially when he sees how much he's going to get killed when this doesn't work, because the Bears aren't quite. I mean, they're not really equipped.
It would take maybe not miraculous, might be a too strong a word, because last 2 years they've been 8-8, and they have been pretty pitiful in finding their way to 8-8. So the margin of error from a 10-6 team to a 6-10 team is only a few plays, as Herm Edwards has said. But when you take a look at this schedule, and I don't know what's going on with my clicker, but when you take a look at this schedule, they got a tough slate next year. I mean, it's a little early to be trying to forecast exactly how teams are going to be.
Hey, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if they play, the Jets or the Bengals of last year every single game of the week if you don't have the quarterback situation figured out. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Actually, the Bengals aren't that bad after Joe Burrow got hurt. We'll call it that.
Right.
But let's say you have to get the quarterback situation right. If you think you're going to compete whatsoever, and if they're going to trot Nick Foles out there and have a rookie that isn't one of the top rookie quarterbacks, you're going to be in trouble. And that's why I'm curious what success looks like to George, because if he's going to be patient and understand that they need to restructure, players and contracts and things like that, okay, fine. But I want to hear that. I don't want, if you're thinking that these guys are going to go out and win next year because Virginia's might not even be here,
you're really flawed. Yeah, you're trying to win a hand of poker with not much in your hand, and you got to bluff. Good luck to you. Lesser hands have won, and maybe you can find your way through this schedule. I'll tell you this much: Bragg's in the stands. I set the over/under at 8, Jake, because I don't. I know a lot of fans are. I ain't ever going to the games. I'm not buying one bit of apparel. Well, guess what? That just means cheaper tickets for Bragg's in the stands. So I don't really care. I'll be there. I'll boo. I'll make my voice heard in the stands a different way than others.
If this team that we had in 2020 was playing, put that schedule up for a second again, please. Mm-hmm. If the 2020 team was playing this schedule with the way they just ended the Saints game, how many wins would you give them against this slate? Would you have them beaten the Cardinals? It'd be close, right?
If Kyler's healthy, no.
Yeah.
When
let's just say full strength, where the Bears are right now compared to
each team's full strength, Bears and Cardinals. So if we're doing that, then no. Ravens, no. Giants, yes. Niners, maybe. Maybe.
I would say no, but maybe.
Well, because you're saying full strength with Garoppolo then.
Yes.
So then it's pretty close. I can understand you giving the Niners, but I'm trying to be nice to my damn Bears.
That's
the Bengals,
yes.
Maybe.
Lions,
yes. Vikings.
They'd split, right? They'd split.
Okay, that's fair. Packers 0-2.
They're losing both.
Browns lost. Steelers lost. Probably. They're off the rails. Bucks. I don't know. They beat them, but
yeah.
Your point is taken. I mean, they're going to have to be much better if they're going to find their way through that, even though, like I said, the landscape, people do that. We used to do that all the time. Look at their schedule as soon as it came out and be like, okay, it doesn't work like that.
But it's the broader point, right? The broader point is this team really needs to do something different if they're going to compete. And outside of we're trading for Matthew Stafford, or we're trading for, and Matthew Stafford, is hit or miss. But we're trading for a guy like that who can come in and compete and is a good talent. Immediately, you might have drop off at that position, even from Mitchell Trubisky, which is funny to say because Mitch just, he never quite got it, and he's not a great quarterback. But what's it gonna? We don't even know what's gonna be. So it's weird. That's why I'm curious what the measure of success is, because if you're gonna give him time to restructure this team and do all those things, great. And I'm a fan of that, but I want to hear it.
I agree. So before we move on to the Johnny B for 3 segment, I figure we'll give a little commercial break.
Hey, this is David Kaplan from ESPN 1000, the Cap and J Hood Morning Show, and NBC Sports Chicago. Do what I do. Watch Braggs in the Stands with Greg Braggs and Jake. Must watch television. Take that.
Take that.
Jake. I don't know his last name. Jake.
Man, you got to love my guy Capper.
Yeah, he's great.
He's a great dude. And I was actually able to, before we get into the Johnny B segment, I guess I could, throw these pictures around. I had the opportunity to sit in for, a very limited amount of people were at Bernie's Book Bank over last weekend while the Patrick Manley Award was being given away. And it was really cool to be in attendance for this. Like I said, it was just the people doing the production and basically me. And the reason they invited me was, of course, Darren from Bernie's Book Bank and I on the left, we did the 29-mile walk in order to raise money for Bernie's Book Bank, which you can do here. I'll share their .org along. And basically what they do, as I've said before, is, supply underprivileged kids in the Chicagoland area with, books and Wi-Fi access and things of that nature. And they combined with Patrick Manley, as you see on the right, the longest bear, tenured bear in franchise history. And he was on our show a few weeks ago. They combined, Bernie's Book Bank with, the long snapping award, which has never been given away to any long snapper until they created it here in these last couple of years. And as you can see, there's the trophy. I thought, Jake, was really cool. I have really cool. I got a cool video of it here. I'll share with you. It's got no sound to it, so we can talk over it, but it's actually a mold of Patrick Manley's actual arms holding that football in hand. So it's really, really neat. And the detail in it is very impressive. And, to me, it's one of the coolest trophies out there. Like all of them are the crystal ball, and that one really exemplifies football. So I, thought that was really cool. And I do want to shout out Darren and those guys for inviting me over. I had my chicken parm dinner. They took care of me and they're really good people at Bernie's
Pat Manley he just towers over you. He's a big
dude. He's a big dude. And we were sharing some good stories over dinner after we did a socially distanced dinner inside this warehouse. As you can see, this is where they're normally distributing books to thousands and millions. I mean, they literally, like, I think he said 1.9 million books distributed this year, and they only have 31 volunteers because of the pandemic. Normally they have thousands of volunteers, and this is where they do all their work. And this is where you can get some of their swag in their front of their shop. And really cool. I was able to spend some time with Patrick Manley over dinner and Darren, sharing stories, talking about our favorite movies. And Patrick, when we were doing our interview, you always want to pull the unique stories out. And of course, he was busting them out at the dinner when nobody's listening, talking about his time at Duke. When he was playing football, he was actually practicing or playing pickup basketball with a lot of the Duke players back then, Cherokee Parks and Grant Hill. He talked about a pickup game where Grant Hill was dishing him dimes and he dropped like 13 points on Cherokee Parks. Legends of college basketball history. And he had some. And then Wojciechowski, one of the most famous Duke players, little white boy that would always slap the floor. He said that him and Wojo were big drinking buddies, and he said one time Woj almost got busted by the campus feds because he was busting bottles and they weren't cleaning it up fast enough and things of that nature. So really cool. Yeah, it was fun to chop it up with those guys again. I want to shout out Darren Utnek from Bernie's Book Bank. We were able to be sponsors. I thought this was really cool on the broadcast. They shared this along, and all the work we've done this year to see, that logo as they were doing the video was really cool, really rewarding feeling. We're having a lot of fun doing what we're doing here, but we like to be able to give back. And Bernie's Book Bank is certainly a great place to try to give back to the Chicagoland area. So make sure you guys do that. As I was saying, I was even dressed up. Look at that, Jake. Look how snazzy I look.
I thought you look good. I saw you got some grief for wearing a black belt with brown shoes.
I switched it. The belt was reversible.
Good. You got to do it.
I reversed it at the gas station. There's my daughter, Addison. She said I looked like a flower. I decided to do the flower shirt.
That's a very loud shirt. Yeah.
I'm a very loud person. Jenny said when I chose it, she was like, it fits you. So she's right. And, so I just figured I'd share that along. So that's my little Brags in the Stands adventure of last weekend. We're looking forward to more adventures here this year coming up in the 2021 season. But one guy that is on an adventure right now is our guy, Johnny B. He's making his way to Kansas City for the big playoff showdown against the Cleveland Browns here coming up.
Good game.
And we're excited for him. It's going to be a really exciting game. And we'll do the Johnny B for 3 picks first, and then we'll give our thoughts on what we think is to come for old Johnny B and the Cleveland Browns. He wasn't able to sit in tonight because he's on his way there, as we said, driving, I'm assuming with his lovely wife right now. So he sent us some videos along the way. Are you ready to rock and roll for those?
Yeah,
Jake?
I am up.
Right. Well, here we are with Johnny B in his world-famous segment, Johnny B for 3, as he always makes some money, helps you make some money from your couch. Here he is, Johnny B and Johnny B for 3.
Johnny B side here coming at you with the Johnny B for 3 picks of the week. 54 and 38 overall. We went 2-1 on the show last week. Mr. Unlimited got us our over 1.5 touchdown passes, but then he choked in the game. So we went 2-1 for those. 1-0 on game day picks with Big Ben over 1.5 touchdown passes. 30-11 on the year on game day picks. Absolutely on fire. So let's get into it. Johnny B for 3, my number 1 pick of the week. Winners win, baby. I've been saying it all week. We're going to tease the Packers money line with the Chiefs -4. Put them together, tease them. Let the number 1 seeds go on to the championship games, and that's going to get you at -130. $130 wins you a $100 bill, and that's the first pick of Johnny B for 3.
And there he is, Johnny B for 3 with his first pick, and he sent a second video along, and here it is for picks 2 and 3. So here it is.
My number 2 pick of Johnny B for 3 this week is J.K. Dobbins, anytime touchdown scorer. There's supposed to be some snow in Buffalo from what I'm hearing. The rushing game might excel, and the Bills are a little soft all year against the rush. So take J.K. Dobbins at a +120 anytime touchdown scorer for my second pick of the week. My third pick of the week, you know who he is, number 15. Number 15 on the jersey, but number 1 in your hearts. Over 2.5 touchdown passes. Big Ben threw for 1,000 yards against the Cleveland secondary. They're a little banged up. I'm expecting Mahomes to do the same. Over 2.5 touchdown passes, and that'll be my number 3 Johnny B for 3 pick of the week. And remember, money won is far sweeter than money earned. Woo! Football playoffs, baby. Let's go. Woo!
Johnny B, living the dream. As he always is.
Going to games, enjoying his life, having the Hall of Fame quarterback.
To go to every game, won a Super Bowl last year. It's gone to, this is his, I think, 4th game this year. Going to a playoff game. Business as usual for Johnny B. I'm not jealous. I'm very happy.
At least we got
very
happy. Reference.
I'm very happy for you, Johnny.
Yeah, thrilled.
Next week, Johnny B will be back with us, I'm assuming. And hopefully, he's capturing some good footage of a huge showdown with the Browns and the Chiefs.
Yeah, that'd be a good
have
one.
some good highlights to share with us. And without our Bears, and I think we put a big bow on the Bears today, we're probably going to move off and start talking about some other things. So next week when we talk about the NFL in general, I'm sure Johnny B will have some cool
Maybe
photos
we'll
and
be able to
highlights.
talk about a defensive coordinator. Maybe we'll see.
Yes, and
if it's going to be Jay Rodgers, I think his contract expires, so you better make a decision, sir.
That's right.
I don't really care who it is. If I'm being honest, I'm so upset with the way things are. I don't even care right
and they
now.
say that the linebacker coach is a big candidate,
Or the safeties coach,
and
Yeah.
we'll see. I can't tell you whether or not either guy is qualified. I hear people with different opinions about both. I don't really know how you can make an assessment on those guys, but I'd like to have an Otta guy, just a familiar name. But hey, Chuck Pagano couldn't have been a more familiar name than you could get, and he didn't really do that great of a job.
Well, that's why a guy like Jay Rodgers, or I forget what the Desai or something, the safeties coach, a guy that's been with these guys, especially Jay. Jay's actually came over with Fox. He's been here for a long time. And the guys know him, and let's see what he could do. I'm kind of about that life. But let's check out some games, huh?
Let's.
So I made a new graphic. It's going to cut us off a little bit. So try to sit up straight a little bit. There we go. So yeah, we don't have many games. So I'm just going to do stuff like this from now on.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
I like it.
So last week, God, look at all that stuff is totally not lined up properly.
What do you mean? What's not
up here?
lined
The
up?
Jake, the Greg, the Johnny. See the alignment? It's all fucked. That bothers me.
See what we're up against here? This guy, I'll tell you what.
can't
Once we get
stand
to a complete off season,
I was
maybe
very
one
rushed.
of these upcoming episodes, we can tell the story of how we came up with the logo that Jake created, and we had to go through more than a few rough drafts.
That's how it works, baby.
I'm
We have lots of
particular
drafts.
about what I wanted, but Jake is also the ultimate perfectionist about things that you would never think matters. But that's what makes him.
They have
good
to
at what
matter
he does.
in my line of work. They have to matter. You got to be right.
I
You
respect
got to be tight.
I respect it.
So let's check
Don't
this. So
neglect
last week Johnny went a nice 5-1. Greggy went 3-3, and I went 4-2. So we got this week. We got Rams at Packers. We're all taking the Packers here across the board. I think that one's kind of in the bag. You got I don't know what the weather's going to be, but you got an LA team traveling with the Jared Goff who is starting with the bum finger. You got a damn good defense. But I just think the Packers are eventually going to make a couple more plays than the Rams are capable of doing.
Yeah, I agree. The Rams have been playing with house money here for a few weeks now. Jared Goff's back in. He's not fully healthy. Green Bay's rocking and rolling. The only chance the Rams really have is if Aaron Donald destroys the entire game and the Packers are rusty and somehow by luck, bounce of the ball, a few turnovers here and there that might flip the game to make it closer. More than likely, this is a 35-21 kind of a game here, maybe even 35-14 kind of a game. I see the Packers running away with this.
I think they're going to do work. So here we go. Baltimore.
Oh, here we go. Timeout.
Oh yeah. Well,
Chubbs. He is the upset king. I
he's
don't know
about half and half with his upsets. I don't think
if you're going to count all his Bears upsets,
he had some
that's
good
not
ones.
fair.
Though.
The Bears upset picks aren't fair. It's our heartstrings being pulled at it. But
No, he had a couple good ones. A couple pretty good ones earlier.
He was on a roll, especially to start when we did our Chubbs, instant upset picks. So he's got the Rams winning. Let's see what other upsets he's got. All right.
Yeah. So here we go. We got Ravens at Buffalo. Ravens played a pretty good game last week. I thought, good thing with Lamar, he was able to use his legs, but he made a couple nice throws.
At first, it looked like the Titans were going to run him out of the building, and the Ravens, and then all of a sudden, that war of attrition set in, and the Ravens really started beating them down on both sides of the ball and winning the war of trenches. They shut down Derrick Henry on the ground, and then they themselves started running the ball really well. So I expect that to continue as I picked them to win. You guys got the hot Bills. And
I'm taking the Bills in this one. It's at home. They are going to have fans there like they did last week. The Bills are playing really, really good. I think this is a pretty tightly matched up game, though. I mean, I think I think the Bills have the advantage in a couple places offensively, especially with Stephon Diggs. And I mean, Josh Allen is making great throws, and he can run, and he's not quite as fast as Lamar, but he got legs and he can move. So I'm giving Bills the edge here, but I think this is going to be another game that's closer than people think.
This will be a good game because the Bills, are the upstart new team here, but the Ravens have been through it here the last few years, and I just feel like the Bills, youth, and maybe I'm wrong here, but maybe that's gonna come up to play here.
Yeah,
this is a big moment, and maybe they're ready for the challenge, but the Ravens have kind of built up those calluses, and I feel like they're ready for this moment. We might actually get the Ravens Chiefs showdown, and Chubbs is getting a little chesty with his upset. He apparently has the percentages down, and he picked the Browns last week, so he's right there.
Nice. I picked the Browns as well.
I picked the Steelers, which was a total miss there. My goodness gracious.
Big Ben. Offensively, they haven't looked good for a while. Big Ben should probably just hang him up and retire. But yeah, this is gonna be a good game. Like you said, the Ravens have a little more battle tested.
Well, and they said the weather Johnny B mentioned the weather may play a factor in this game. So who knows if that happens?
They're both in the Baltimore and Buffalo are both in some rough terrain, so they're no strangers to it. So give them the wash on that. But yeah, it's gonna be a good game. Really, really good game. Looking forward to that one. Also looking forward to the Browns at Chiefs. I think the Browns will hang with them for a while. I definitely think they have the firepower. They got the defense. I mean, but I can't pick against the Chiefs. I mean, I think Kelsey said something last week that said we've been ready for the playoffs since week 1. They just were there. They just won a Super Bowl. They've only lost one game this year where they were playing their guys, and it was against a division opponent. It's just hard for me to pick against the Chiefs. They're so primed.
Right. I'm the same way. I've seen some people picking the Browns, but maybe I could see it. The Chiefs won theirs last year, but Mahomes is such a cheat code, and he is so competitive. He does have that will to be the greatest. He has that chip on his shoulder, that Michael Jordan mentality. Yes, he's got some great players around him, but he just is constantly – he exudes that kind of confidence that you want to see in your quarterback. And I just think he'll be ready for any challenge that comes to him. The Niners gave him the ultimate challenge in the Super Bowl. They put 3 scores on the board at the end of the fourth quarter, and I could have won a ton of money if I'd have just bet with my mouth, because I was saying they were going to come back, because the Chiefs are capable. Even if you hold them down for 3.5 quarters, you can't hold them down for 4. So the Browns are going to put big time numbers up. I think the Chiefs.
The running game for the Browns, like Mo just said in the chat, is going to be the difference. I think if the Browns are going to win, they're going to keep the Chiefs on the pat on the sidelines as long as they can, and they're going to play good defense, and they're going to run the ball like crazy, control the line of scrimmage, control the clock, and that's how they'll beat the Chiefs. But they can do it. But like you said the Bills. The Bills are in the dance now. The Ravens were in the dance, got upset. They've been there, done that. Well, Kansas City's ultimately been there, done that. The Browns are very much new to this whole winning in the playoffs.
That's why I had picked the Steelers last week, because I thought that kind of moment for the Browns where they weren't going to be ready for it was going to come to them against the Steelers. Luckily, they were able to beat the living snot out of the Steelers. And the worst part about it for Bears fans was, I thought maybe they'd have a Cody Parkey moment happen to him, which I still think is on the board. Still on the board, but a true Cody Parkey moment would have been an exit in the first round of your first game of the playoffs. And unfortunately,
they dominated the Steelers.
Right. So not only
a tight game.
Not only did he not double doink like he did to the Bears in their first game, but he actually, Cody Parkey himself, scored more points than the Chicago Bears did against the Saints. Cody Parkey had 12 points against the Steelers.
And there was no pressure for him, though. That game was – they ran away with that.
Talk about adding insult to injury, that we return to the playoffs and Cody Parkey scores more points. I mean, talk about the what if I told yous. I mean, that's a 30 for 30 that I I will not watch.
And you know what, Matt Nagy, why didn't you score more points against the Eagles in 2018 playoffs?
Oh, I know. That was another thing
Screw
I
you.
brought up to somebody in the Silvy chat because they think I'm always defending Trubisky when I say Matt Nagy takes no accountability, and I reference the quarterback, and they get mad at me. But it's the truth because it's the same thing with the kicker. As soon as the 2018 season was over, and it was one of the biggest disappointments because that team really felt like we had a shot with momentum and energy, charisma, everything they had, all the cards going their way except for the kicker. And then he misses the kick and he goes on the Today Show. He embarrasses the franchise. And then they do their end of season press conference. And Matt Nagy is more pissed off than you've ever seen him, basically saying that kicker ain't worth a damn, blah, 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 blah. But, oh, hey, timeout. Yeah, the kicker cost the season, and you were made sure to point that out in your presser. But you forgot to mention that you should have cut him 2 months prior to that.
Yeah.
So again, another situation where the season is wasted. You're blaming the kicker instead of stepping up to the podium and saying, I should have been a little harder and made the proper roster adjustments when they were needed, not after the fact. So, it's it to me, that's more of an example where Matt Nagy accountability.
I don't know that Matt feels like he needs to be ultra accountable because look at his boss. Look at it, and look at Ryan. Ryan is the football guy, which is so scary. So he does. I mean, the whole structure is so effed for the Bears. It's so disappointing. Anyway.
We
Bucks
found our way
Saints.
back to crying about it.
Yeah, here we go. Bucks at Saints. I think this will be another good game. I'm taking Saints in this one. It's at home. The Saints have beaten. I think they've beaten the Bucks twice this year already. They seem to know how to play against these guys. I'm just taking the Saints at home.
I didn't see much from the Saints against the Chicago Bears last week. If the Bears would have just, came to play in certain capacities, a few different things go their way, the Saints could have found their way to losing that game. So I don't see the Saints beating the Bucks here. It is in New Orleans.
That's fair.
Drew
I
Brees
get the three time again. I get the
Brees.
3-time play.
Well, and I also thought a lot of the things that I had spoke about before the Saints game on as to why the Bears could have won are now gone. As far as Alvin Kamara might be a little rusty because he didn't have any practice time before the Bears game. Now he's played a game. Michael Thomas had been out a month with injury, and I was kind of banking on maybe him and Drew not necessarily being as cohesive as you've seen them in the past. Now he's got a game in. So they've got some things working in their favor. Their defense certainly is.
I think Rojo might not play, so it'd be a Fournette starting at running back.
And I'm not sure if their D tackle will be Hendrickson will be able to return, but I don't know. I'm taking the Bucks here, but I think this will be a close game as well. So the only one that I don't think will be close will be the Packers game.
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to stomp the Rams. So other than that, you got 3 of the 4 games this week are pretty damn good. So looking forward to that.
Got the Saints. Mo Bierman's got the Bucks. He hopes, and Karen. Our good friend Terrence's lovely wife and a good friend of mine as well puts up with my ass in London. She doesn't think that Brady will lose to the Saints.
I get that. I totally understand.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. So I agree in that scenario. The Bucks played some decent football last week. So we shall see. So there it is. Yeah, we shall see, my friend. We shall see. A few things before we call it a night here. Been a nice long show for everybody to enjoy. This has been a really busy week on Brags in the Stands. Next week will be a little more toned down. We'll be back Friday night as we always are. And, transitioning to different sports. On Wednesday, I was able to have some really cool guests as we talked IU Purdue. Was a lot of fun. Was able to talk to Bobby Riddell, who's the color analyst for the radio side of things for Purdue men's basketball. Really fun interview. And then I also had Brian Tonsoni from Assembly Call, a very popular Indiana basketball podcast. And he also does a lot of work where he founded this group called Delphi Bracketology, where they break down, who will be in the bracket. And then by the end of the year, they try to get as many teams right as they can. And both interviews were a lot of fun. And yesterday, and Jake, you're an IU alum, we were breaking down the IU Purdue game. And sure enough, my boys, and of course you see over my shoulder here, I changed out the Khalil Mack jersey and I busted out. This is actually Addison's jersey. It doesn't quite fit her yet. So I figured we'd put it up in the wall of fame for Brags in the Stands while the college basketball season is going on, because our young Bucks are starting to play some basketball, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a lot. It's very exciting for me as a fan of the team, and obviously a fan of soccer, because these guys are young. They're the youngest.
They constantly answered the whole game. When IU would come back and start getting it close, they never gave them the opportunity to even surpass their lead almost all night long, or practically all night long. So kudos to them. That they got a good team on their hands. It just their record doesn't fully show, I think, how good they actually are.
Well, they're very talented, and there's Sasha there on the graphic. Very cool to see. And you're right, they were in complete control of that game. Indiana isn't certainly of Indiana of old. They're not the best team in the Big Ten by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all.
But when you consider how young, like I said, Purdue is the youngest team in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is the toughest conference in college basketball. Last year, they had to grind, Purdue, that is, had to grind their way through the Big Ten, and they looked like they were going to be just on the outside looking in to the tournament. And this year, it's almost the same situation, but I feel like this team is slightly better and has a better chance. The only question is, can they mature fast enough? And Chubbs and I were having a little sparring session in our DMs, and he was messing with me when I was looking after they lost to the Rutgers in Illinois. I was looking over their next 4 games, and I thought they could win all 4. And Chubbs, I said 3-1 at best, or 3-1 at worst. And Chubbs, I believe, only had them winning 1 of those games. Nebraska, they got canceled because of COVID. Then they went to Michigan State, and we covered it a little bit on Wednesday, had a miraculous comeback win in the second half against Michigan State. Travion Williams with a game-winning shot with only a few seconds remaining. And then the IU beatdown just the other night. So now they're 2-0, even though they missed the 1 game. And now on Sunday, they play Penn State to see if they can hammer all the wins home. That I was feeling good about it, but they had to see it through. This is another really cool graphic that the Purdue Sports put up. Really funny. I don't know if you noticed. Look at the center court of your assembly hall.
Oh, jeez.
That I put in the comments. That was cold-blooded, but Purdue has beaten them 11, I believe, 11 of the last 12 times. They've won 8 in a row overall and 5 in a row, as you see in this graphic here at Assembly Hall, which is tied for the longest streak ever by any team. Wisconsin also did it from 2008 to 2013. And I was actually able to go to the 2019 and 2020 games. Really, really fun rivalry, and the Purdue Boilermakers are in complete control. And my boy Sasha Stefanovic, he actually fouled out of this game. He got a technical foul in this game, Jake. Did you see when the 2 players were going at it? Were you able to catch that part of the game? What did you think of that moment? Because to me, I thought that was weak sauce to give Sasha the tech too. It didn't really look like he had done any of the shoving. They were just jawing at each other.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing with like all the crap they do in college with targeting and stuff like that. They just seem to be a little softer with these guys.
To make the right call. They just want to make, any like that. To me, it was like a default. Double tech instead of just warning the guys, because then that ended up costing Sasha a lot of minutes in the game because he was in foul trouble, because that adds to your foul list. For my top shots, I have to share along a couple of the cool shots. Here was brought to you by Purdue Sports, and this was in the tunnel immediately following their big win against Indiana.
Hey, great to get one out here, baby.
You gotta love it. Very excited for these guys. Like I said, they play Sunday at noon or 1. Yeah, they're turning the corner, or trying to at least. Painter was trying to get them to chill out as soon as the game was over, because they were ready to celebrate on the court. Because like for them, I think after losing 2 in a row, they were meeting a point in their season where it's like the crossroads moment, and they were able to get over that hump by beating Michigan State and then really taking it to Indiana in a way that they haven't taken it to any team yet this season. So regardless of the fact that Indiana may not be as good as they have been in years past. It is a Big Ten team. There is no breaks in the Big Ten, and they got a lot to be proud of. They just got to continue to stay consistent. And these were Painter's words to that effect, and I thought a really cool moment in the locker room.
Tommy Luce. After all, you know what I mean? He won T. So he gave you some good mojo? Good win, guys. Good win. You saw our schedule, all right? And so, we got to enjoy this, okay? On the bus ride home, we got to enjoy this. You got to wake up tomorrow. You got 2 days, then we got a game. Then you got a day, then you have a game. Then you got 2 days, then you have a game, all right? So we have to be mature about it. This is a great win. All right, we hung in there, started to get more stops there, coming down the stretch. All right, gotta learn when people pick it up and people get aggressive and they get after it. You got to use it to your advantage. Don't take it as this is going to be more difficult. Anytime there's pressure, you should be loosening things up in the post, back screens, things of that nature. All right, we did a better job as the game progressed, but we just got to learn from it. All right, we got to learn from it. Great win. Let's go. Stack it up. Good job.
Hey, what's up, family? That's right.
Family.
You see Sasha breaking down the huddle there. You see,
IU will always be the superior. IU will always be the superior school and campus and all of that good stuff. So,
well, you said last time
when they're best.
The girls
and the women are better. Yeah,
you said the girls were better, and we got the haters in the chat. Chubbs is upset because his prediction of Purdue losing these games was wrong. I tried to warn him, but he wouldn't listen. But I don't want to jinx it because they got a big game on Sunday. I don't count my chickens. Yeah, I'm taking my victory lap on you though, Air Jer. He's also a big IU fan. Sorry, buddy. Archie Miller's days are numbered in IU. I feel like, I would say Purdue probably has more talent, even though some would argue that IU has more talent. But regardless, Archie doesn't seem to have a true structure or system to what he's doing. Now, granted, I don't watch them as much as I watch Purdue these days, but just the way Matt Painter coaches, you heard it in that breakdown where he was talking about, and I just love how he thinks as a coach when he was talking about how teams get aggressive. You can't get scared. You have to use that to your advantage and counter off it. And I just love that mentality. And you can apply that to any sport because, teams go into a shell when the other side starts getting aggressive on you. And there's a counter to that. You have to find that counter to get them to stop being aggressive. And I just love that Matt Painter understands that and really puts that into his players. And I think IU could use a coach that truly understands to create a system. IU's not necessarily bringing in the blue chippers like Duke or Kentucky, and they got to start trying to build their system the way Matt Painter has in Purdue. And then it starts, once you build it, then it'll start rolling over. And I think they had high hopes for Archie Miller, but I haven't seen very much. And It doesn't seem like Air Jared has seen very much either, and I don't blame him.
Makes you miss Tom Crean.
Yeah, and I like Tom, but if you want better,
I met Tom at Subway once when my senior year, I think. Yeah, I went to Subway and he'd just gotten hired, and I was like, Tom, Coach Crean, what's up?
Hey, and he did well. He
enjoyed Subway.
Shot against Kentucky. They had some great moments, and
that was one of those jump out of your seat.
Oh man,
pump moments. Yeah,
and so. But I can understand wanting better for the program. But Archie, came in as a big name, and now he doesn't seem like he's cutting the bill. Has never beaten Matt Painter. The team, is what they are, and their next 5 games are so tough. It doesn't look like they'll win any of their next 5 games when you look at their schedule. But again, it's the Big Ten, and any night, any team has a chance to win. So you just never know. But yeah, my guys, my Purdue Boilermakers are starting to get on a roll. I'm not going to say they're on a complete roll yet because then I'll just jinx them. But that was Sasha taking a charge right after getting challenged into a fight by one of those guys on IU. So I loved it. IU was talking a lot of junk too, that Trace Jackson Davis was, he can't guard me after every shot. Like, relax, buddy. How about you learn to shoot free throws before you talk all that nonsense? So that about wraps things up here. I took my victory lap here, Jared. I had to. Purdue's rocking and rolling. They beat IU again. Sasha's undefeated against IU. That's really exciting. Tonight was really exciting, Jake. Had a lot of fun. Even though we were talking about some very dark and gloomy things regarding our Chicago Bears, our beloved Chicago Bears. putting a bow on the 2020 season officially, and now looking ahead to what the Bears can do in the offseason. I want to thank our special guest tonight, Marc Silverman from ESPN 1000, great friend of mine. And, these guys have been in my corner for a long time, and I can't thank them enough for all their support. I look forward to being able to return to Wrigley Field. No bleachers for you, Sylvie. We'll be in regular seats, but I promise you, you're going to sit with me for a whole Cubs game, and we're going to drink whiskey and have fun. You have no choice, just like you have no choice to be my friend. So Jake also has no choice. I want to thank all the people in the chat for hanging out, all our peeps. We appreciate you guys hanging out all night long, interacting in the chat, asking your questions, firing away. Really enhances the quality of our shows. Appreciate you, Chubbs. Appreciate you, Air. Appreciate you, Mo Bierman, Karen, Alex Acevedo, all you guys. Thank you again for hanging out. And I want to thank Jake, of course. Great job tonight. We had a lot of fun. Talked about a lot of stuff. Got through it all. Long show for you guys to wrap your head around for the next week. We will be back next Friday night with, I'm sure, another special guest and a lot of fun. And we'll be asking Johnny B about his experiences watching a playoff game against the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs. So that wraps things up for tonight. I'm your host, Gregory Braggs. It's my co-host, Jacob Hovanek. And we will see you next Friday. And always, no matter what, bear down. So we'll catch you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. Peace.